I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Happy to be here.
All right, thank you for joining. So I just gave them an introduction. So can you
Okay.
also tell your work for all the followers who are there?
So I have training in clinical psychology from NIMHANS, that's the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Bangalore. As a therapist, as a psychotherapist, I help couples, who are in a difficult situation to figure out how to reconnect or how to, walk gracefully without getting into ugly spats. Then I also teach workshops. I teach a workshop called Art and Science of the Beloved, which is to do with relationships. And I have a private practice and a whole bunch of things. But I think this is enough for now.
Okay. And you told that you are a couples therapist. So,
Yes.
So when somebody wants to consult you, they should come as a couple or they can come alone also.
Well, usually one person calls. Both people usually don't show up. It's typically the women. But it helps if I have both people in front of me, at least for the first consultation, because it gives me a good context and gives me the complete story, and I don't want to get biased from one person's narrative. So it's better if both come. Yes.
Okay, so let's say, for example, only one person came, and like you said, there might be high chances of you being biased, right?
Well, so it depends.
My question is, how do you navigate through it? That's more or less mine.
Okay, yes, got it. So here's the thing. When people tell something, they speak from their perspective, right? Now, having worked in this field for so long, I realized that irrespective of the details of the problem, what we listen for are the patterns of how they relate to people. So they may be talking about maid issues, mother-in-law issues, co-sister issues, doesn't matter what they're talking about. But it's about what psychological patterns are they projecting onto the relationship, and how it must be matched by the other spouse also is more or less, visible as you listen to the whole story. So the question here, see, you can get biased if you take a judgment on whether someone's right or wrong. So as a therapist, we never do that. The question is never about who's right or wrong. The question is, what exactly are you doing and how can that shift?
Okay.
Yeah.
And so let's say, for example, if a couple is there, now when do they know usually that they should approach a therapist?
So that's an interesting question, because there are some people who will run to a therapist within 10 days of the marriage because something very drastic happens. And yes, and there are some people who never see a therapist. So I think it's very unique. I think it's very couple dependent. It's also dependent on each individual, their upbringing, their expectations, their tolerance, their maturity, so many issues, right? So there's no standard thing of if you are ticking off these checklists, go see a therapist. It's not like that. But there are broadly some things. There are 4 areas where trouble can start, and it can contaminate all the other areas also, right? So one is physicality, which is not just sex. It is to do with the physical comfort between each other overall, as companionship, comfort, togetherness, all of that. Second is finances, which is not about how much money you have, but a sense of security. And that's also very personal and very relative. Some people can be secure at 10 lakhs and some may want 500 crores. We don't know, right? The third is about social identity. That is, these two people, do they have an identity in the ecosystem as a couple, or do they just exist as individuals? And the fourth is shared values and worldview. How do they see themselves and the world in the larger context? So I always give this example, this fourth piece never comes up until the kids come. Once the kids come, you can have issues like, shall we buy a disposable diaper or shall we buy a cloth diaper? So the neighbors, aunts, uncles, everybody saying, "Inta chinna maatiki, why are you fighting?" But it is not the diaper that they're fighting about. It's about the value of the ecosystem, the green earth, the sustainability, the reuse, recycle. There's one person has that view. The other one thinks, you know what, let's just get on with life. Let's not complicate our life. Let's make it easy. So that's how the fights start. Or whether to send the child into a IB school or into something like a Vidyaranya. Again, it's a value system clash. So actually, I always say this, every conflict, especially in intimate relationship, has to do with a clash of values, not the issues, not the things. It's a clash of values. So therapy actually helps people identify what those values are.
Okay. So when you are talking about all those 4 categories, one couple each came to my mind in each of these categories. I mean, from the couples I know, I think each couple. Maybe I should just gently push them to go to therapists like this. All these 4 couples came to my mind.
Yeah, well, so here's the other thing, interesting thing, usually the couple who's going through will not be very eager or ready to go for therapy. The rest of the people around them will keep advising them. Yeah, that is also there. Then there are many times when couples go to other friends who are couples for, downloading, unburdening their heart and free advice and things like that. Occasionally that helps, but usually when you try to help someone's marriage, the friendship gets ruined. So I would highly recommend, yes, because see what happens is there, the couple who's seeking will also want to know, tell me who's right, who's wrong. And you get pulled into that saying, nahi, ye tumhari galti hai, ye theek nahi hai, that kind of thing. It is not about right and wrong. It is about something they're doing, something they're failing to do, which is causing trouble. And that requires a proper listening and understanding and analysis. So which is where trained professionals come.
I think more or less whenever we talk to somebody, whenever we share our problems to somebody, we want them to reinforce that we are correct. So we are not like trying to find out the root cause of the problem, but we just want them to tell them, okay, you are right, that person is wrong. More or less.
Correct. So see, that is when we seek validation. We want to be reassured that we are okay, we are right. Yeah. But then sometimes validation is enough to take off the steam and people can go back and be okay, which is fine. But if the issues are deeper, if the issues are something very, very complex and deep, validation ruins the thing further. Because now this person becomes even more sure that what they are doing is right. And actually that's causing the trouble.
Okay. So how do I know that my issues are deeper or the issues which I face with my partner are deeper? How will I know?
Okay. So if you have persistent conflict, like every area of a interaction, there is friction. There is, fights and there's sulking, there's anger, there's rage. When all this is going, so it's almost like you can use the 80-20 principle here also. If 80% of the time you're okay and 20% of the issues you keep fighting, that's okay. But if it's flipped, you're fighting 80% of the time and hardly 20% is okay, then there's a red flag right there. You need to meet someone. Yes.
Okay. And one more thing I want to ask you is that, so let's say, so one of my friends, so he asked me to ask this question to you. So the question comes like in India, especially, the divorce rate is very less compared to other countries. But then again, I think it is less because of the tradition which imposes on us that divorce is bad. Like you should never get divorced. You should just try to make it work as long as possible.
Okay. So what's the question?
The question is, so let's say for example, if a relationship is not working, so it is okay to go for a divorce, right? Like it's not a bad thing at all.
Okay, so let me put it this way. If you don't mind, let me give it a little context and a longer answer. Right? So first of all, it is no longer true that India has very little divorce. That's not true.
I mean, in comparison to other countries, no?
Compared to other countries, perhaps, but let's not compare with other countries, let's compare with ourselves. 15 or 20 years ago, it was hardly heard of. In the last 10 years, there's been an exponential rise, especially in the urban and tier 2 cities. right?
Okay.
People don't go around talking about it. It's still considered a taboo, but it's happening. And there are two broad categories. The very young ones, those who are called millennials, they are actually going in for a lot of divorces. But interestingly, those above 40, all the way up to 60 years of age, 65 years of age, are also breaking apart. Meaning they've lived together for 15, 20, 25, 30 years sometimes, but they are also, walking out of it. So is it a good thing or a bad thing? Let me put it this way. If you are suffering as a result of the relationship, if you believe that it is corroding your soul, if you believe that something better is possible for you, not in terms of another relationship, but just a more wholesome, fulfilling, peaceful life, then I think it is an act of self-assertion.
Okay.
But if you're doing this because you found somebody else or there's something else happening, if there's an external factor to the divorce, then there's a problem. Then there's a problem. Yeah. Okay. So if the pain is within the relationship, then you want to look at it, you want to understand it, and then take an informed decision. Again, I would say there's nothing right or wrong, because the same thing doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I hope that answers your friend's question.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. For me, it answered. I hope that he also got the
Okay. Let's hope he'll write in if he has more doubts.
Yeah.
All right.
Usually, among all my friends, I am the most intelligent, so I have the most.
Of course. That goes without saying. That goes.
Okay. So now, what do you think is the biggest challenge which you face as a therapist in this profession?
Well, to be honest, let me share this. So when I told many of my friends today that I'm going to be on a show with a stand-up comedian, every single one of them had this question of, you on a comedy show, what are you going to do? You're like the tragedy queen, right? So in the sense, all these difficult, painful, really horrible relationship issues you deal with, what are you going to do? So what is difficult to the therapist is sometimes you can't really spontaneously say what you truly feel, because there is a concern that it will be either misunderstood or taken out of context. So in that way, I feel socially very restricted. Okay. I have zero socialization. I just don't go out anywhere. I don't meet anybody, because few times when people do run into you, you don't know whether they are okay to be seen as knowing a therapist, because there's always a taboo about why and how do you know the therapist. So many people turn away and walk the other way around. And I don't want to embarrass them. The hard part is that people hold you in high regard and hold you up to certain standards, and they expect that professional behavior everywhere. So I can't be silly, I can't be idiotic, I can't do crazy things, which I would like to, but that's hard. It's not taken very well. So it's happened even on my Facebook. If I make some comment which is just spontaneous or humorous or in joke, it's not taken very well. There are instant reactions about, oh, but how can you say this? It's like, okay, fine. So yes, that's hard.
Okay, then I think lockdown is just a normal day for you, I guess.
Oh, tell me about it. I'm like thinking nothing has changed for me. I'm still sitting at home, still doing Zoom calls, still scheduling people. And yeah, in a way, yes, it is funny as it sounds. Yes.
Okay. Now, one question I have for you is, now day in, day out, you will be listening to a lot of problems of couples and other people. So how do you manage yourself? Because it must be emotionally draining, no?
It is emotionally draining. And over the years, I've learned what to do with it. So the first thing I've now started doing last few years is to schedule carefully, to not take on everyone who comes, number one. To assess and screen properly, and then schedule few a day. There was a time when I used to work from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. non-stop. And these are 1 hour sessions, right? I don't do that anymore.
Okay.
I think I'm fortunate to have a family that completely understands. I think my kids sometimes get the brunt of it when they see one other avatar of me. Sometimes I think when I'm stressed. I read, I color, I write poetry. I watch videos sometimes. So I do my own
Stand-up
things. I go
comedy,
for.
stand-up comedy videos you watch, right?
Yes, I do. Yours too.
Okay. I was about to ask
Yes.
who is the best stand-up comedian you like, so then I realized, okay. I think- No, no, don't answer, don't answer.
No, no, no.
If
Let's
it
not
is
answer
not me,
that.
then don't answer.
The genre, different genre, ja. Each
Yeah,
one
yeah,
will
yeah.
be this thing, yes. But as I
Right now, I
told
don't know
you,
which genre I belong to.
which is great because you can't be typecasted. And as I shared some messages with you, a lot of people, you seem to have a very good fan following. So that's good.
Oh. So one person is asking, what should the person do when they find out that their partner is cheating on them?
Hmm. This is a complex one. I don't think it's a small tip that I can give. It has layers and layers and layers to it. So sometimes the cheating is a cry for help, and sometimes it's a character disorder. It's a broad spectrum. So unless there
Wow.
is a proper evaluation done, it's hard to advise a situation. It's not a here, take this pill for the headache kind of thing. We have to
Yeah.
look into what exactly happened, you know.
No.
So
No.
really, sometimes when people go out of the marital boundary, it's really a cry for help. That doesn't justify what they're doing, but I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
that process of working with that couple is drastically different from the other situation where it's a character disorder, where there is an addiction either to sex or to just keep having relationships, or there's a escaping, running away from here situation, or something else is the matter. Then you have to address it very differently, right?
Okay.
So I would
Now,
suggest that they seek help from a
uh,
professional. Yeah.
I have a question now from the
Yeah.
people who approach you for therapy. What are the common problems usually? Like, if you can categorize them, what are the common problems? Like maybe one or
Okay.
two categories.
Yeah. So usually people start off with, are more comfortable to reach out with parenting issues.
Okay.
And then, like I said, if they are conflicting around how to parent a child, it has to come back down to their own individual value systems,
Whoa.
number
Okay.
one, or
Okay.
the sense of financial security, whether they feel stable enough,
Okay.
or whether there's a good ecosystem support, whether they have extended family, community, friends, going, outing, mingling, etc., whether it's buffered, because I think these are all buffers for us, right?
Okay.
And of course, physicality. If there's no chemistry, if there's no compatibility, that single-handedly can tilt the marriage. So there's another favorite line of mine, in a reasonably working marriage. So I've stopped saying reasonably happy marriage because apparently that's still an oxymoron. So in a reasonably working marriage, sex occupies only 20% of weightage.
Okay.
It's not a big deal. But if sex goes wrong, if something goes wrong in the sex department, then it contaminates 100% of the marriage.
Wow.
So often all these surface level issues come down to this. They come down to some fundamental either incompatibility or difficulty in this space.
Okay.
And again, that has relationships with emotionality. So there is this mismatch. Typically, women seek more emotional comfort, men seek more physical comfort. But there are many situations where it's the other way around. The woman doesn't want any, too much of deep connection, or just want to get on with life. The guy is, really keen to have this heart-to-heart, deep relationship. So either ways, it's a problem. So if there's an incompatibility in that department, it's a big problem. So broadly, these are the
I
areas.
think this looks like a huge ocean only. I think you cannot just pinpoint it as
Yes.
a lot of
Oh,
factors
yes.
and all like influencing a relationship.
You know what? Including my 2 years at NIMHANS, 30 years, this is all I have done. And I have to humbly say that I barely know anything. It's ocean. I don't even know what it is. It's a huge ocean. Every day, every case, every person is a learning experience. And therefore, I am very, very skeptical and scared of these agony aunts, these, what's that guy's name? Karan Kapoor kind of shows where they tell you what to do with relationship issues. And people who just say, no, shadi mein sab chalta rehta. It's not that simple. It's a whole science and a whole art by itself, you know. And the tragedy is for this, the most important role in your life, to be a spouse, and followed by to be a parent. For these two things, there are no training programs, no degrees, no courses, no certificates, nothing. You date because you hit puberty, you marry because everybody else is also getting married, you have children because you got married. Now you're stuck. Now you go through the roles, right? So it is complex. It's very complex, yes.
Let's say for me to have a happy relationship with somebody, do I need to be happy first, or do I need to be at an optimum level of mental health before I could take care of the mental health of the entire relationship?
Yes, I think you've asked a very crucial question and hit the nail right on the head. There's another statement I always make. Relationships cannot make you happy or unhappy. They bring out the happiness or the sadness that is already inside you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So yes, so I think the way you relate to yourself determines a lot of what you do in the relationship. So if you have a tendency to take yourself for granted, if you have a tendency to disrespect your needs, if you have no sense of your own boundary, if you're, always in a crazy space, you will do the same thing to your immediate intimate spouse. That's just the way it works. So I think working on your own relationship is the most important thing. Okay. So many a times that is what therapy involves, working on themselves. Yeah.
So basically, when you say working on yourself means I have to keep working on myself in order for the relationship also to go to next level, right?
Yes. But so it's a very interesting 2-in-1 process, right?
Yeah.
So how do I know what is it that I have to work on? Yeah. When I'm in relationship with you, you mirror back to me what's not okay, because you show me the blind spots which I'm not able to see.
Okay.
So when you say something, then I can have the opportunity of checking, introspecting, and improving or changing, right? Vice versa. I can also see things which you can't see. So I'm going to tell you. I don't have to tell you. If we are together, that will come out. Intimacy brings out the demons. Wow. Intimate relationship will bring out all your skeletons and all your demons. That's a given. There's no two ways about it.
This is the best line I've heard in my life. Intimacy brings out your demons. I think that's true, actually.
It is true. It is true. But listen, that is how marriage was designed originally, I think. Okay. It provides a contained, socially sanctioned space for people to continuously help each other improve and evolve. But then it fell apart. It fell apart somewhere, and we are in this space now. Yeah.
No. Actually, I'm just thinking about all the other relationships, any relationship for that matter, not necessarily with your partner, even with your friends also. The moment you become intimate with them, a lot of demons come out. I think we should use them as an opportunity rather than getting overwhelmed by them.
True. Yes, if you're open-minded, it's a brilliant self-improvement opportunity. Every friction you have in any relationship. Yes, you're right. You're right.
Okay. Cool. So now just tell me one thing. Let's say, for example, for a relationship to have a minimum level of stability, what are the habits which you suggest? Maybe 2 or 3 habits which you feel the couple should keep doing or something.
Okay. Can I suggest 5? Because I have a 5-point model.
I understand 2, 3. You added both 2 and 3. That's fine. So,
how are we doing on time? Are we okay? Yeah.
I think we are fine. We can overshoot a little bit. That's okay. If you have time, that is.
All right. Yeah. I'm free. I've kept the evening open. But before I answer that, tell me, did we get any little hearts? My daughter was trying to tutor me about this Instagram live.
We are getting a lot of hearts actually.
So she told
I was
me,
like,
she told me, maybe you'll see some hearts floating up. Don't get a heart attack. No one's trying to flirt with you. It just means
yeah.
they like.
I mean, so this is the maximum number of hearts I have received in my live sessions actually.
Good for you.
No, good for us actually. I mean, which means a lot of people are liking it actually.
All right, great.
So the hearts
So
are still encouraged, like,
still
increasing.
flowing, still flowing. Oh, thank you guys. Thank you so much. So here's the thing. I want to give the tips about what you can do to maintain optimum relationship health. Okay. So I use this 5-point model. Okay. So I want the viewers to visualize this as the first thing is the foundation. Okay. Which is called exclusivity. Meaning, now I'm having a conversation with you. If I really want to give attention to this and be fully present here, I can't have conversations with 3-4 other people. It's not possible. Same applies to a relationship. You be in one relationship. You can't do open door policy and try this and do that and double track and all that doesn't work. Exclusivity. Without that, there's no point discussing any further. Okay, so that's like a non-negotiable first point foundation. On top of that, now visualize one circle. The very first thing is respect. Now, by respect, I'm not talking about namaskaram and thank you and please. No, not just that. Respect is about recognizing that people can be very different from who you are and they have as much right to exist as you do. Fundamental. This is the meaning of actually ahimsa, non-violence. It is to do with allowing and agreeing that it is so and I am so. That they are so, I am so. Right? That is respect. Second thing is trust, the second circle. Trust is about the consonance between speech and behavior. So you say what you mean what you say, you do what you say, and you say what you do. That's all. No things of, oh, I really love you, and then not showing up for 3 days. That will not earn you trust. The third circle is care. Care is about, care is about hopefully perceiving, but if not perceiving, at least listening to what the other person is asking for and trying to meet those needs as to the best of your ability, right? This has a caveat. We can't expect our lovers and spouses to be mind readers. They're not. You have to tell them what you need. And once that's been said, if the other person can do it to the best of their ability, it shows that you care for the person. Right? So that's the fourth component. The last fifth component is commitment. Commitment, the way it's understood these days is this commitment phobia, etc. It's not about that. Commitment is about the implicit understanding that no matter what, we are in this together. So when we have a fight, we are not on either side of the net. We are on the same side of the net. We are not adversaries. We are together trying to solve the problem. So the commitment to togetherness is what, the promise to be together is the commitment, right? So now visualize there is the foundation, exclusivity, there is respect, there is trust, there is care, and there's commitment. So these four sit together like that. And if you can visualize an infinity loop going through all four of them, it's a dynamic loop. It's not static. It's not like you can just settle it and it's all done. No, lifelong, it keeps moving like that. And how you fulfill all these 5 components will ensure that your relationship remains healthy.
That's wonderful, actually. Very nice.
Thank you.
We'll take some questions if anybody has some questions.
Sure.
You guys, there's a lot of times now whenever these issues come up in relationships. So I'm sure, like you said, they keep coming up again and again, right? Like over a period of time. Okay. Now, certain times what happens is, obviously because of the fights and all, the trust kind of is the first thing to go out of the equation.
Yes.
Okay. So now, according to the 5 points which you have told, do you think commitment can actually take care of the trust also?
Yes.
Yeah?
Commitment is what, even though I have broken the trust, I'm with you to rebuild it. That's the meaning of that commitment circle, right? So commitment can cement it, care can cement it, respect can also cement it. So the thing is, it's very difficult to rank which is more important. They're all equally important, and they're always in a very dynamic thing, right? And as you said, one feeds the other, but one can also subtract from the other. If one goes, all of them start shaking. That is also there. Yeah. But if you keep feeding one, all of the others can also get stronger. So you can enter from whichever is your, strength, and you can do that. Yes.
Cool, super. Okay, somebody is asking, what is the essence of perfect relationship, irrespective of friendship or anything else? What is the true essence of perfect relationship?
So, I don't think there is anything called a perfect relationship. I think relationships exist so that we can become internally perfect as individuals. I don't think a relationship is ever perfect, ever. Even between a mother and child, we have very glorified ideas of motherhood. But there are many, many mothers who have no clue what their kid wants, especially when they're newborns or infants, So even there, it's very hard to meet the need of the person and have this perfect experience. In fact, it is because of the failures we experienced with our parents that we then set off on our own adventure, on our own journey. So to have the notion of, somehow one day I'll have a perfect relationship is itself a problem. I don't think that's very sensible. I think it's better to look at it as an unfolding adventure. And like you said earlier, can you take each relationship as a feedback mechanism where they show you what you can't see? I can't see my back. People can see. So
one more question somebody asked is, how do I know if somebody is compatible with me?
I think you will know. These components are there. Do you feel respected? Do you feel that they are trustworthy? Do they care for you? And are they committed to your well-being?
I think we can go back to that 5 points which you have mentioned, I guess.
Yes,
so you can keep going back to those 5 points again.
Absolutely. These are, so let me say something, although this is not what the person is asking. This is coming from a different space. Okay. What's happening nowadays is, see, whether we are compatible or not, over a period of time, we can actually sense that. We all know whether we are valued, whether we are cherished, whether we are cared for, whether we delight somebody. It's very obvious. But I think what's happening nowadays is there is this whole FOMO. If I say yes to this person, what if somebody better comes around? So I think the biggest mistake we are making is looking at people as objects which can be valued, evaluated, and taken or not taken.
Basically, like me to our end, I guess.
Exactly. So I think that is what's causing trouble. Otherwise, this question of am I incompatible, your instinct knows, your gut knows, your intuition knows, and if you can trust that, you'll get along. And if there's a problem later, well, good. You'll learn something else from the problem also.
So somebody is asking, what if in a relationship, one of the 5 things is not strong enough, but all the other 4 are strong? I think that's fine. I guess that's beautiful. Among the 5 things,
absolutely. See, it is not that they all have to have an optimum level of 60% at all times. It's not like that, right? And if all 4 are strong, you're already in a very good place. Just work on the 5th one. So it's 80% good, 20% reinforce it. It'll get better.
I think Ulta will be different. No, if only one thing is good and 4 are bad, then I think it's a little,
that's the case with all these very, very old marriages. When I say old marriages, I actually use the phrase much married, meaning people are married to the same person over decades. Right? So what is there? Exclusivity is always there. They're married, they're together, they're with each other. That's it. But all the other 4 circles are missing. There's no respect. They yell at each other. There's no trust. There's no care. There's no commitment. So it's a dead marriage. It's not a live marriage at all. Yeah.
Somebody is asking a question. How do we define our expectations to partner? I think we should communicate the expectations to each other. I think it's a very important.
Yes, absolutely. So let me quickly distinguish between need, want, and entitlement. Okay. expectations can come under these three categories. Need is what you really need. What you really, really need, right? I need a hug. I would like you to look at me when I'm talking. Or I'd like you to spend time with me first before you sit in front of the TV. Or whatever these are, right? Needs, right? The second thing was wants. Meaning, oh, I want you to come with me to the gym. I want you to walk with me outside. I want you to come shopping with me. These are wants. I mean, you can manage very well, but yeah, you have the preference. That's okay. Entitlements are, but as a husband, can't you do this much also? But as a wife, shouldn't you be doing this? But look at that one's wife, she's doing it. Look at her husband, he's buying that. Those are entitlements. So in your list of expectations, first do this categorization. Find out which is a need, which is a want. Want can also be a preference, right? And which is an entitlement. The more you approach any relationship with entitlement, the more guarantee that it's going to fail. It won't work. Nobody likes to be treated with entitlement, right? They would like to be treated with request or a...
The first one, you told that you keep doing some workshops. So can you just tell us about that workshop? Probably if somebody is interested, they can join, no?
Certainly, certainly. So this workshop is called Art and Science of the Beloved. It's a 2-day workshop. It is 100% experiential. By that, what I mean is, all these things I spoke about, no? By the time you have dinner, you'll forget it, right? But if you attend, but if you attend the workshop, it will get into your cellular memory because it is taught through activities. It is taught through games and activities. And in this workshop, you can come alone, you can come with your partner, you can come with a pseudonym. You don't have to tell one bit about your history, background, nothing. You can just come, participate, learn this. So what this workshop teaches you is, how do you show up in a relationship? What is it that you do and what is it that you don't do, which causes trouble in any relationship, right? So it's about that. So people can come for that. Yeah.
Okay. So how often do you conduct these sessions?
So before Corona, we used to aim for at least, once every 2 months, because it's a physical movement and engagement and participation kind of a whole workshop. Now I'm trying to bring it online, where many of the activities can't be done together, but I'm still hoping that this Zoom and some other technology can still help us. So the online one I have yet to announce. Anyone can attend it.
Like
anyone can. Yes, please, because it will show to you what you do with yourself and with a potential partner. Yeah.
Then definitely come.
Please come.